Hi, I'm Nancy Bell from Oshkosh Public Library, and this is Book Buzz, where I talk about one book that's recently been getting a lot of buzz in review sites, social media, and other places. I break it down into elements, and then I talk about 3 read-alikes that have similar themes, characters, or general vibes. This month, we're talking about the newest book by Joe Nesbø. He's probably best known for his Harry Hole detective mystery series, but his latest book is dark horror just in time for spooky season. The release date is actually tomorrow, October 3rd, for The Night House. I love this quote about the book from Josh Malerman, who's the author of Bird Box. Nesbø doesn't spend any time fiddling about, building up, or misdirecting. The horror begins immediately, and it only keeps calling from there. There are lessons to be learned here. Who to believe and what to believe in, and how a person can change when the impossible turns possible and the unimaginable is laid bare. So the book absolutely does start immediately with horror, when 14-year-old bully Richard forces Tom into prank calling a random person from the phone book. The phone itself starts digging into Tom's flesh and devours him. Then we skip to 15 years later, and Richard is attending his class reunion as author of The Night House. And then even more creepy, hair-raising events ensue. So let's talk about some of the elements about this book. So it's supernatural horror. We don't really know what's going on. It's obviously not a realistic mystery where someone has been murdered, and we're trying to find out who did it. And then the horror itself comes from not knowing what it is. We also have an unreliable narrator. Is Richard telling the truth? Was this some kind of trauma in his past that is causing him to remake this tale? It's also a coming of age horror book, which is actually fairly common. And so, you have these young adult adolescents who are trying to figure themselves out. They're at an awkward stage. And then instead of going on this life-changing journey where they find themselves, they instead find crazy, horrifying events. This book is also really nostalgic because we're starting in that phone booth. Who remembers those anymore if you're past a certain age? As well as different references in the book have recall to 70s, 80s, and elements from horror from that time. Next up, we have In the Shadow of Spindrift House by Mira Grant. So shipped off to live with her grandparents after a mysterious cult killed her parents, Harlow Upton Jones becomes part of a tight-knit teen detective agency. But when her friends start looking for adult professions, it's up to Harlow to find them one last case so they can go out in a blaze of glory. Welcome to Spindrift House. The stories and legends surrounding the decrepit property are countless, but one thing is clear. There are people willing to pay a great deal to determine the legal ownership of the house. So Harlow and her friends agree to investigate the mystery, but Spindrift House keeps its secrets for a reason and has no intention of letting them go. So this one has a slightly different version of supernatural horror. It has more of a don't go in there haunted situation. It also brings in, again, that coming-of-age horror. Lots of reviews actually say that if you enjoy the show Stranger Things, you should give this book a read, which I think also goes into that nostalgia element that Stranger Things horror vibe brings with the 1980s and older, the nostalgia of horror from that time period. And lastly, another book that I really enjoy is Meddling Kids by Edgar Quintero. So in Meddling Kids, the members of Blyton Summer Detective Club, they reunite for the first time since 1977 to revisit some unfinished business in the resort town where they spent their summers as kids. The full gang, except for one member who unfortunately has passed, they go through a full Scooby-Doo episode of action. There's the haunted house, there's a reclusive wizard, there's supernatural characters and creatures, and they even have a telepathic dog in tow. But the Meddling Kids are now adults, and they have adult problems to add to their past childhood trauma. So this one is also a supernatural mystery, supernatural horror crossover. We're not exactly sure what's going on. It's mixing like cosmic horror with like Cthulhu-esque mythos along with like creature features that we know and love from Scooby-Doo. Saying that it's like a take on Scooby-Doo, taking those classic characters and revisiting them. So it has a really nostalgic vibe. This one, although it is horror, it's more of like a comedic horror, kind of making a joke about the seriousness of some of these like kid detectives and the horror that they had to go through. And those are the 3 Readalikes I have for you today. If you liked this video, give it a like and subscribe to the library's YouTube channel for more content. If you have any suggestions or questions, please go ahead and leave a comment, or you can always get a hold of us here at the reference desk, which I'll leave a link to down below. Thank you so much for watching. Let's all get back to reading.